Hello and welcome back to Good Moms Build Wealth. I'm your host, Camille Babin, the Kingdom Wealth Architect. Today, I want to talk about redefining your relationship with money. It's very important because I know that as we talk about building wealth, first of all, you must understand that my perspective or my take on wealth is that wealth goes beyond the finances, wealth goes beyond the material. But I know that some of us, might need more help, in the area of finance. So essentially, what I want to address, it's yes, the financial aspect of wealth, and we will also have different times when we'll be able to address the various wealth areas that I truly believe in. But today I want to talk about um, just finances, and I also want to talk about it in a way that is very dear to my heart. Some of you already know I'm a mindset coach by default. It's really at heart what I do, and I've just come to realize how God is really using what I know and what I love as far as the mindset and the soul coaching, um, all these things, and also joining them or combining them with the financial consulting as well. So everything that I say, you will realize that I lean heavily on the mindset side, because I do understand that wealth starts there in the mind, right? Everything we do as far as building financial or material wealth comes also from the belief that we have, the values that we hold, the thoughts that we think, all these different things. So that's why I believe it's very important. And so this episode, as many others, really seek to address this side that I believe is not always addressed. We love to give, and don't get me wrong, it's very important. I want to be able to help you, like, create a budget. I want to help you, like, do your financial planning right. I want to help you uh create like your spreadsheet and things like that. Although I'm not really great at spreadsheet, but I do understand that it's very important. However, what I think is as important, as this, is really understanding the invisible side of money. I like to call it, is really addressing the behind the scene, right? The underground or the roots, the things that we don't necessarily talk about. And it's really the emotional side of money, or the spiritual side, and that those. So I hope really with this episode today, in redefining your relationship with money, is not to bring condemnation, or for you to now go and just start looking at people differently, but it's really to empower you, in a way that will make sense, that when now you start thinking about building financial wealth, material wealth, that you keep that in mind, because I think sometimes we read even scriptures and we can get lost in it, and sometimes make it say something that it doesn't really say. So anyway, let's just dive right into it. I want to ask you this question. What is your relationship with money? Do you have an idea? Do you know? Is your money empowering you, or is it controlling you? So what I want to address is really putting money in its rightful place. Yes, you might ask, okay, does money has a place? Yes, money does have a place, and that's exactly what happens when we don't know where to place money, when we don't assign money to its rightful place, to God's ordained, place. That's when, we see what we see as far as the turmoil and the chaos and everything that, we can see money, quote unquote, like, create. And then because of that, we label money as being evil, or even sometimes we say good. But I don't really think something is neutral, because I don't think neutral truly exists. But I do understand that way of saying, I do understand the statement. So anyway, I know as we are walking, this path, and we on this journey of wealth building, we truly walking a fine line, because we want to work and we want to create financial freedom for our families. But it's also easy to let money become more than just a tool, right? And if we're not careful, we can let money define us, sometimes even overwhelm or distract us from the things that really matter. So I want to talk about this aspect, like I said, of money. Why is it that money, feels so personal? I remember years ago, I was at work, and I was at the time, with my property manager. I was in property management at the time, and I was, assisting her. And I remember she was saying something, and then she shared how someone, was making her mad, because they were talking about her money, and they asked her the question, like, why are you being so emotional? And she was like, because I'm emotional when it comes to my money. And the thing is, we laugh, but it's true. And that's the part that we don't admit always. That's the part that we don't really deal with, which is really my mission and my goal, and what I'm doing right now, as a coach, as a consultant, to help people really understand the what they have, the power, right? Even like that money sometimes can have over us, because we're not in charge, because we're not taking control, because we're not aware of all these different things. So yes, money is emotional. Money may feel like very personal to us, especially when it's tied to our sense of security, or success, sometimes even our self-worth. So many people define themselves based on the money that they have, or even the lack thereof. Either way, that's not the place of money. Money is not, or should not be used to determine, like anybody's identity, your self-worth, not at all. So maybe you grew up in a household where money was tight, and now you feel like, you need to hold on to every dollar. Maybe it was the other way around, and money was really, like flowing, there was abundance, and it really became like a symbol of status, or a measure, right, of, someone's success. So either way, I want you to be aware and to understand how money can stir up real feelings in us. It may not look like it, but it does. So my question to you is, how do you feel when you find yourself in a financial crunch, or how do you feel even when you're thriving financially? Because those answers, when you take time to answer truthfully those questions, it will really say a lot about your relationship with money. And that's really what I want us to focus on today. Of course, yours is personal, so, but I want to use just this story to help you maybe reflect on it and see a perspective that you probably didn't see before. And that is the story of the rich young ruler, and it's found in Matthew 19. I'm not going to read it, but I will just, give you a summary of that story if you are not familiar with it. So basically, in the Bible, in Matthew 19, we see this young man that is, said to have, to be rich. He's rich, he's young, and he comes to Jesus and he asks him, what does he need to do so he can have eternal life? And then Jesus basically tell him, okay, go and you sell all your possessions and you give it to the poor. Before, you have that conversation first where it was listing everything that, it was doing right. It was truly following the law. It was really abiding by the commands of the Lord, obeying all the precepts of, not killing, not committing adultery, and all these different things. But when it came down to his possessions, to all his money, to his financial wealth, then Jesus, said, okay, now you've done everything basically. Now you go and you sell your possessions and you give it to the poor. And that's when we see how the man, walk away, literally walked away from Jesus sad and sorrowful. That's really the word that was used, sorrowful. And it just didn't, it didn't do it, because it was attached to his wealth. It was really attached to his money. I will even go further and say the money truly has had a grip on him. And I think that's what uh, um, Jesus is warning us through this message, when he said it's easier for a camel to go through the needle, right, than the eye of the needle, than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. It's not necessarily, rich people don't go to heaven. That's not what he says, because I think we use that scripture and we made it say truly something that it doesn't say. We made it say something like, you cannot be rich, because if you are rich, kind of God will not receive you, or you cannot be spiritual, you cannot be a believer, a person of faith, and have material wealth. That's really the message that was pushed, I would say, by the enemy, to prevent and to keep the people of God in darkness. But that is not what this word and this scripture is really talking about. It's really, for me, the way I see it, is really about the relationship that we have with money, the place that money holds in our lives. Where does money stand, in the big scheme of things? Because you see, this man, it wasn't just that he had possessions, because there is really nothing wrong with it, because we can see through our scriptures how much and how many times God blesses his servants, whether it be Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and so forth and so on, and so many of them, that God visited them and blessed them, even Job. So it's like, if money is so evil, if all of these possessions are so bad, why will God give something like that to his children? Why will he bless David so much and Solomon and going down? Why would he even say that Jesus made himself poor so that we can become rich? And I know it's not just the finances, but at the same time, it's not only the spiritual things. It's really like it's a whole thing. It's a whole package. So anyway, what I want to highlight with this story is how this young man, this young ruler, the problem with him is his whole life, his identity, his security, his value, everything was tied to his possession. So basically, it's like he felt like if he didn't have his money, it's almost as if he didn't have a life, almost as if his life didn't matter, right? So the wealth for him, or his money, his possessions, it was not just in his hands, it was really in his heart. And that's exactly what I want you to remember. Even if you don't hear anything of what I say, I want you to understand that I know you probably know it, but you don't necessarily, take steps to enforce it, because sometimes, we are not always intentional and deliberate about what we do, right? And I want you to keep that in mind, especially as we're wrapping up this year and starting even the new year. I want you to really make that like your focus. Now, really, in everything you do, you ask yourself the question and you check your motives. I want you to always ask, whatever you do, think about it like that. Where does money stand in my life? Because money will either be in your hand, meaning that's a tool, or money will be in your heart, meaning money is your master. And that's what also the word of God tells us when Jesus was saying, no one can serve two masters. You cannot serve both God and mammon. He was talking about the heart, he was talking about the position, he was talking about the seat and the place that we give to either one or the other. He said essentially, your heart can only follow one person, only follow one God, right? You can only follow God Himself or Mammon. You cannot follow both, right? But it didn't say anything about not having money or anything like that. So now it's telling us basically, I, God, belong in your heart and money belongs in your hand. As long as money is in your hand, money is there to serve you. Money is a tool. Money is your servant. But if now you switch everything and you invert, the roles, and you really swap the divine order of things, and you put money in your heart, you place money in your heart, now money becomes your ruler. Money becomes your king. Money becomes your God. And that's really the warning. So when I talk about redefining your relationship with money, it's not to say, like, okay, you go ahead and you sell everything. If God didn't tell you to do that, that's not what I'm saying. But what I'm telling you is, I want you to reflect on the position and the place that money holds. I want you to see, where money is. Is money defining you? Right? Because it may not be that obvious. You might ask me, but Camille, what do you mean by money being in my heart or money being in my hand? Maybe in your hand you can understand a little bit better, right? In your hand or bank account, whichever way. But I'm talking about, like, if your money now gives you that sense of pride, or even you walk in fear, like you don't have enough. And, because all of that, those things, those feelings that we have really are an indication of where money is for us, or what money represent for us. Because when you are living in fear, or you living, in pride because of your money or because of your lack of money, that shows you a lot. So that's what I want you to reflect on. And I want you to understand also that money is really not who you are. Money is not what defines you. It's not your source of peace. It's not your source of joy. So when money stays in your hand, then you can use it to build the life that you want. But as long or as soon as you allow money now to control you, to go into your heart, now it becomes your ruler and it controls your life, and it has the potential to even ruin your life and destroy you, right? And that's when we fall into the negative side of money, quote unquote. So let me just give you a few signs of an unhealthy relationship with money, just so we know now how to build a healthy relationship with money. Ask yourself those questions. Do you feel constant stress or anxiety over your finances? Do you feel like you're not enough unless you're financially successful? Or maybe you struggle with generosity or trusting that you'll have enough. And I know, like I can give you that simple example. As long as you choose to serve God and to obey Him and to walk with Him, don't even worry per se. It will tell you, or it will show you every time you find yourself, at a crossroads almost. And like I feel like in our walk with God we have levels, right? I always see it like those video games, that I used to play when I was probably like in my teens. But it was those, uh, I mean, all types really. You have different levels, and you will just play, whether it be by yourself, like with the galaxy thing and all. I used to love, playing those stars stuff, like shooting those missiles, where you shoot, and it's like every time, you go up, and at the end you have kind of like the big monster or the big devil for this level, and you have to, kill him so you can go to the next level. If you don't, then you start the level over. That's kind of how I see really my walk with the Lord. I don't know for you, but that's how I see it. And every time it's like we reach that level where there is a step or there is an action, a leap of faith, something that God will require from us. And when it comes to money, you don't even have what I said. You don't have to worry about it, because every time like you bear or you run the risk of having money in the wrong place, God will give you um those moments and those opportunities. I would call them, really, because they are opportunities, for you to choose to reposition money right, or to keep it under submission. Meaning, you'll find yourself like maybe holding on to your last, like $100 bill, or even more than that. And then God will be like, okay, I need you to give this money to this person, or to, and you're just like, no way, that's all I have left for this week, like, come on, and then you have to give it away. Or even it can be something like of a higher value that you are holding on to, and then God will be like, okay, I need you to give this. It can be, I know, for for some it's been like maybe just like a purse, a piece of jewelry, or even like a car, things like that. When God is like, okay, I see that this thing is kind of getting to your head, or maybe I want to even take you into the next level, but I need you to release. So what I would say is generosity is really a safeguard against greed, and also against, our heart being corrupted by the love of money, which is really essentially what God is telling us, like not to fall into, not loving money, meaning not having money in your heart. So I know, like if you think any of those things, you feel any of those things, you're not alone, But now let's just talk about how to change it real quick so we can wrap up. So now, how do you redefine your relationship with money? First of all, you have to understand, like I said, money is not your worth. It doesn't define you. You have to know that you are already enough, no matter what's in your bank account. It's only a tool that help you truly live the life you call to live. And I want you to create, your own affirmations. I want you to use the word of God and write down what God says about you. God didn't say those things based on how much money you had or you didn't have. He said those things really respective of your gender, respective of your status, your position, your level of success. None of those things really matter to God. God defines you because of the spirit, his spirit that is in you. So that's what I want you to understand, that so that you will not even seek, validation or all these things like from money, that you think that's what money gives. So I want you to work on that. You change this narrative about yourself. You change this narrative about what money serves to do, or what money is supposed to be doing in your life. Then the next step, I want you to really keep that money moving. A bit of what I shared, as far as the giving, the generosity, keep it moving, really be generous. Like if you let that money flow. Basically, that's how you keep it out of your heart. You let money is meant to be to circulate. That's why it's called a currency. It's a currency. It comes from the word like current. It's something that flows. It's not something that remains static and permanent and stagnant. Because when you just want to amass and accumulate like this man was doing, all he was doing was just focusing on just accumulating, having more and hoarding, keeping it to himself. He couldn't give, not understanding that as you release, also God gives you more. And I'm not even like now talking about, just being irresponsible, because you can also be responsible in your giving. Everything that is not led by the Spirit of God, everything that doesn't come from the heart of God and the mind of God, don't do it. Because I don't also want the enemy now to start using this against you and lead you and drive you really into just giving. And sometimes, I know there was a season of my life where I was very, very reckless in my giving. I was very responsible and immature because I didn't know. So, like the first time you hear and you kind of learn, quote unquote, about like, giving, especially in the church. I knew as a little girl, I used to give to people, but because I didn't grow up in church per se, I didn't know much about, like giving in church the way, we see it, especially here in the US. So I would really literally sometimes give, like take money even from my rent and just, just give, right? Because you don't know. And that's not what I'm talking about. And then at the end, you're like, oh my God, I'm short this amount. I'm short this amount. This is not what we're talking about. So don't let, money really, your sense of security comes from money. Now the next step, which will be probably number three, is, like get systems in place, create a budget, find a way to even like automate your savings and uh, um, like find a way to organize your money, so like everything is in its place and you tell your money what to do. That's really what the budget is. It's you taking control, taking charge, and letting your money telling your money where to go and what to do and how to move. You are defining boundaries literally for your money. I really want to talk about, not today, but I think I would have to do another episode, where we'll talk specifically about the budget thing, because I've seen with many people that I've talked to how, this can also be a touchy subject, but also something that is very challenging. And I understand that it's because of the invisible side of it, which I don't want, to get into another episode like do two in today. So let's just keep moving. Number four, also, teach others, teach your kids, even the younger people, because we want to make sure that we raise the next generation with a different perspective on money, like a healthier perspective. So learn to teach your kids what money is. It's a resource, it's not the source. So show them how to save, how to give, and also how to use it wisely. And I want you to keep this last thing that I will tell you, like very dear to your heart. Always keep money in your hands. Because when you keep money in your hands, then you can live without fear. And you will make your decision based on what is right and not what's financially convenient, right? Or even stressful. I want you to really observe, even in the next weeks or so, how you handle money and how you feel. I want you to take a journal and start recording and jotting down your thoughts. Every time you had to maybe spend money, how did you feel? Every time you had to give money, how did you feel? Every time you received money, how did you feel? Every time you felt like maybe you didn't have enough, how did you feel? Every time you thought about maybe losing some of what you've already accumulated, how did you feel? I want you to really focus on every feeling and thought that you have about your money, because that will also help you, like see in what area maybe you struggle a little bit more, than others. And this way we will know now how to address it, right? How to work on, because if you don't know, how can you change? So that's really what, I want to leave you with today. And I want you to remember that money is a tool, to help you create freedom. It's not something that should control your life or control your happiness. So the legacy that you are building, everything that we're talking about building wealth, it's really about the values. It's really passing down something that is way more valuable than wealth, like material wealth. It's more like things of the spirit, like wisdom, those values that really last, are faith, the principles that God wants us to walk by, like stewardship and generosity and things of that nature. So now here's your challenge: keep money where it belongs, right? Let it sit in your hands so that it can be ready to use. I don't want you, I want you to picture like almost like a uh how you, so I don't want to say the prison, but I want you like really an enclosed, an enclosure, maybe build an enclosure around your heart. And I think it ties with Proverbs 23. I think it's 23 4 23, or yeah, I think it's Proverbs 4 verse 23, that said, guard your heart, above all else, right? Because out of it flows the issues of life. That's how I want you to keep your heart guarded, so that nothing that is not, nothing that God said should not be in it will not be in it. Just not just money. Of course, we're talking about money here, but I want you to see that in mind, so that you understand that, as long as you keep your heart guarded, really keeping that place special and sacred for the Lord to inhabit, to dwell in it, you will have no concern about money being in the wrong place. So I really hope that this episode truly brought some value to you. And if it did, then please feel free to share it with someone else that may enjoy it as well. And also, I would love to see your comments. And even you can just like send me an email. And also, I do have my newsletter that is coming out, so I can look in the description. I will have the link there, so you'll be able to click on it, sign up, so this way you can receive the, insights and different tips and tactics that I use, to make sure that you keep your money in your heart, I mean your money in your hand and not in your heart. So God bless you. You have a wonderful time.